Welcome, viewers. Continuing from where I started from with my brief introduction to information literacy, I want to go ahead to explore more contents. And in this new video, I'm going to look at information sources, the different information sources, for example, I'm going to dwell on primary sources of information. And please stay tuned in to this video as I give you a brief overview of what it is. So let's look at what primary sources are. Sorry about that interruption. Let me look at the primary sources with you. So what are the primary sources of information? The brief introduction as a recap of what information literacy is. We said it's the ability to identify, locate, evaluate, and use information effectively. Now, why understanding sources is important? Why is this very important? It helps us ensure credibility, accuracy, and reliability of information. An overview of primary sources are first-hand materials that provide direct evidence or first-hand testimony on a subject. As you hear from the word primary, it's a beginning, it's like a step. It's like the first step to getting something, because we all know there is something, there are stages in life. We have primary, secondary, or and then tertiary. So normally we understand primary as the beginning sources. So in the same way, in the same understanding, the primary sources is simply a first-hand material that provide direct evidence or first-hand testimony on subjects. What else can we say about the primary sources? So the historical records, for example, like birth certificates, the treaties, the official documents. We can have things like personal writings, like in our diaries. This is normally seen by ladies. They like writing diaries. So we have our personal writings like diaries. We have letters, the autobiographs. Then we also have things like the visual and audio records, where we have the photographs, we have the videos and audio recordings. And on the other hand, we also have things like the scientific research, we have experimental results, we have data, and we have reports we always get from the lab. All these things are looked at as primary sources of information. So now, why do we use primary sources of information? Dear viewers, we shall get to know that primary sources of information are really direct insights. We get them from the source, and these provide like unfiltered access to original thoughts. We are going to say that observations and experiences are original. We don't get second-hand information. Rather, we have first-hand information. And also there is enhancing critical thinking. Primary sources encourages deeper analysis and interpretation of what the information is altogether. So another thing is there is historic and research accuracy. With primary sources, it helps validate historical facts and also academic studies, yeah, to be precise. So let's look more into primary sources by seeing some of the types of primary sources that we have. We are going to realize that primary sources come in different formats, different ways. We have historical documents where we find government records, treaties, and legal documents. And then there is the creative works, like the original painting. You see, like the near rock painting. We have things like the literature, music, and films. So under primary sources, we also have scientific and empirical research, where the scientific experiments and lab reports fall. Another type is the personal accounts. That's where we get the memos and then the interviews and personal letters. So the types are basically four for now, which you are looking at, being the historical document. Another is creative works. Another is the scientific and empirical research. Then you have the personal accounts. So I hope we are all understanding some of this basic information, which I'm trying to guide you through. Let's look at another concept of where to find primary sources from. I know most of you are already asking yourselves, like, where do we get the primary sources? So these primary sources, basically, you can get it in places like the libraries and archives. Like in our university, we have a library where you can go and find some of this information. We have public libraries. We have those university collections. Another place you can find our primary sources can be the online database. So you can get it from the online databases like the Library of Congress. We can have the National Archives, like the GSTOR. Also, we have the museums and historical societies where some of these primary sources are. We have in this we find the local and then the national museums, and then the history centers. I'm very sure that all different regions have museums that have the historical information kept, data, and some of those materials that we need from the origins. Another place we can find primary sources is the government and institutional websites. For example, the official document repositories. There we are able to find those things containing the political, the government, and the national information when we need them. So to go ahead with that, let's see how we can evaluate primary sources in a way that we are going to look at the authenticity. Where is it? It is an original document or a product, is it? So we are supposed to evaluate these sources to see if they are authentic, right? And then we have the point of bias and perspective. So there we're going to ask ourselves, who created this information? Who created this source? So we are going to go ahead to explore who created it and what was their intent. Another thing in evaluating primary sources, we shall look at the contextual analysis, where we shall explore or try to evaluate what was happening during this creation. So some of these questions we shall be asking ourselves, and we shall be intending to find out, to get to know where they originated from. Another way of evaluating primary sources is reliability. This is simply like the information collaborated by other sources. We shall be we intend to find out if the information is collaborated by other sources. So these are some of the questions we shall be asking ourselves. And then last but not the least, about primary sources, we shall, I want to let you know how to cite primary sources. So primary sources can be cited using standard citation styles like APA, MLA, and Chicago. Another way is by using the key citation elements, like you can use the author's name, the title of maybe a journal or a book, the date, the publication, and then the source type. So simply this is another way, these are the ways we can cite primary sources. And then, for example, you can have like using the MLA, you can try to search for Lincoln, Abraham, the Gettysburg's address, or you can type in the year of publication. And in that way, we are able to find to cite our primary sources. From this far, I hope we have acquired some knowledge, especially we already know what information literacy is by definition and how important it is. And again, we have got to know what primary sources are, how we use this, how important it is, how to cite and evaluate primary sources. I thank you all and welcome you to tune to the next video. Bye.